Hey, how you guys doing? It's producer from Brothers Comics. Welcome to the Who Day Over 40 podcast for long time, long suffering Cincinnati Bengals fans. Who Day, everybody. Back still into the off-season program here as the Cincinnati Bengals are moving into that last phase of phase 3 of off-season OTAs. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But today we're going to look at 4 questions in a 4-down situation as if it was a football game. First down, second down, third down, fourth down, with a 4-pack of questions to kind of look at what's going on in the offseason. Bengals got a lot of questions going on. And as they get into this phase 3 workout starting on Tuesday after the holiday break, they'll get an opportunity to start to a little bit more install into the offseason program before they take that long break before training camp. So we'll jump right into that. But yeah, just looking at a couple of things as we move forward into the offseason program. But first, there's a little bit of Bengals news. The Bengals are making upgrades in Paycor Stadium all over the place. The players are getting a new locker room. The weight room has been renovated as well. We already know about the indoor practice facility and making some changes to that. The Bengals are really investing some time and money into Paycor Stadium and the stadium experience for Cincinnati Bengals fans. Something that since Paycor or Paul Brown had been open, they really hadn't done much of. But in this new era, which we would call the Joe Burrow era, they are definitely investing their time, money, and effort to make the fan experience better for Bengals fans. I think that survey that came out not that much long ago, where the Bengals ranked fairly low in a lot of the player categories and some of the fan categories as well, that the experience at Paul Brown isn't great. I think that stung them a little bit, and they're looking to, make some upgrades there. Also, and I'm not familiar with all the politics in Cincinnati or Hamilton County, but, there's always been this push and pull with the government within Cincinnati and the Bengals and that stadium and leases and extensions and all of that. So I think the Bengals are trying to position themselves to be in the strongest position if they're going to ask the county for whether it be more money or God forbid that they ask to try to get a new stadium or something built in Cincinnati, that that they've shown the fans and the city that they have invested their own money into making the experience better. And that's probably a good idea before you go with your hand out asking for the state, city, and county for more money. But yeah, better video boards, clubs, the club sections getting renovated, the suites, like all of that kind of stuff. That's important to attract people, to the game. And, you try to make the experience for Bengals fans, on par with other stadiums in the league. The Bengals still one of the most affordable tickets within the NFL for their game days experiences. So you want to know if that's actually going to change now, again, as the Bengals start to get better, as they start to show a little bit more and move into a more modern franchise. Because and again, in the past, they had been further, and further behind a lot of the other franchises within the NFL. Other news and notes, Bengals offseason program, like I alluded to before, phase 3 begins next week on Tuesday. Primarily, they'll just be able to now finally get on helmets to do 7-on-7s and 11-on-11 drills. And, that's the last phase, and it lasts for 3 weeks. So essentially going all through June, and then it goes into that dark period for the entire NFL, where the last part of June, all of July, and then even parts of August are, just a blackout period where the players aren't allowed at the facility, can't meet with the coaches, anything that they're doing, they have to do it out on their own. And, this has been an important phase for the Bengals with phase 1 and 2, getting Joe Burrow back into the fold, getting the rookies a little bit acclimated to how the Bengals do things, on the field. And now phase 3. And again, it is not a mandatory OTA here, but you want to make sure that most of the players are there. And that's barely been the case, except primarily for 2 people. And we'll talk about those 2 people when we get into the 4-down territory. But this is a good opportunity. Now you can see if Jermaine Burton is, progressing as he's, being able to face off against, a cornerback opposite him. You get a chance to see, Miles Murphy's get off, even though they're not making full on contact, but to see his get off when he's lined up against somebody else and get the helmets on and, into the mostly fully padded portion of this offseason program. And I think that's a good, indicator for the Bengals on where they're moving and as they try to install this new offense, you know, and to see where Joe Burrow is, throwing against competition at this point. It's been a slow phase to integrate him into this as he's recovering from that wrist surgery, and now with a chance with everybody, in camp for the most part, they'll get a chance to see where he is in that progress. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we get to these four downs. But first up, it's first down, y'all. So four questions as we go through this, looking at some of the offseason, questions for the Cincinnati Bengals. So question number one, y'all. Trent Brown is one of those people that hasn't been through the offseason program. He's been dealing with some family issues, they said, nothing serious or anything like that. So Amarius Mims, first round pick, has been working at the starting right tackle position. And there's been some talk that he would be, may earn that job actually, coming out of camp and be the starting right tackle, which makes Trent Brown your tackle that rotates between left and right tackle if somebody gets hurt, God forbid. So first down question, are you comfortable with Trent Brown, or excuse me, with Amarius Mims being the right tackle opening day against the Patriots? I'm not sure where I am on this, to be honest with you. He's obviously gifted. It's going to take him a little bit of time to fully acclimate to the speed of the NFL, but you know, he's obviously got more physical skills than Trent Brown. It's just how much do you want to put on the learning curve with your, franchise quarterback there with a rookie right tackle in the early parts of the season. I'm not sure how comfortable I am with that. And you really need to protect Joe Burrow. And if you are watching this on YouTube, or just asking the question or listening on the podcast side, like, can you name all the starting right tackles that have been for Joe Burrow? Because he hasn't had a repeat starter in his entire time in the NFL. There's been a different right tackle that has started every season that Joe Burrow has started since he's been in Cincinnati. And whether it's Trent Brown or whether it's Amarius Mims, that streak will continue at the start of the 2024 season against the Patriots. And so that drafting Mims was to put that stability there. But the last thing you want to do is rush him out there when you don't think he's fully ready. But maybe he just flat out is better than Trent Brown and he wins the job right out. But I think that Trent Brown was primarily an insurance policy as they were looking to draft somebody anyway this year. I'm not sure if you need to rush him out there and maybe let him slowly get acclimated to the speed and everything in the NFL. So I'm not sure if I want him out there. All right, so back to that question. Can you remember all the people that started at right tackle? Bobby Hart in 2020, Riley Reef in 2021, La'el Collins in 2022, and Jonah Williams last year. And look at this. Bobby Hart just sucked. Riley Reef didn't finish the season at right tackle, got hurt. La'el Collins didn't finish the season at right tackle, got hurt. Jonah Williams finished the season at right tackle and signed a free agent deal with the Cardinals. Like, looking back, it's like, oh, Brock Bowers would have been nice, or some of these other players would have been nice. The Bengals really need to address the right tackle situation. I mean, we were in an epic proportion of just repeating the same thing over and over again. So at least now with Trent Brown on a 1-year deal, he's really not making any real money. If Amarius Mims comes in and wins that job straight out, at least you have a valuable backup at left and right tackle. And he's not like he's making so much money that, it's not going to be a big deal, down the road. But man, yeah, this is a shameful list, to be honest with you. All these stopgap dudes, filling in these positions for the last 4 years, and now you're going to have another one here if you have Trent Brown start over Amarius Mims. But at least you have a long-term solution drafted at that position moving forward. Second down, y'all. It's the Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor was announced that it's going to be the Monday Night Football game against the Commanders in Week 3. The list here is of nominees is on the YouTube part, or if you haven't seen it, or if you haven't seen the ballot on Bengals.com. So 2 picks go in every single year, one of a more of a current player, and then one from like kind of the veterans for the Cincinnati Bengals. Everybody's thinking that Corey Dillon, this might be his year. He's really been on a PR tour. He's been on several local, podcasts, doing interviews and all of that. He was at a golf tournament here recently doing the Icky Shuffle with Icky Woods. Like, he's doing his best to kind of try to mend that fence of the bridges that he not just burned, but he exploded on his way out of Cincinnati. And so now, in an attempt to build that fence back, maybe he can get himself into the Ring of Honor. And that actually might be his first step on trying to get himself into the actual Hall of Fame, because he actually does have NFL Hall of Fame numbers, So hopefully the Bengals are open to this idea, but it's probably going to be Corey Dillon, probably. And then maybe one of the veteran players. Most people are thinking it might be Lamar Parrish, the cornerback from those days, or Bob Trumpy. As some of those veteran players are getting older, you would hate that what happened with Ken Riley have to happen with the Bengals Ring of Honor as well, where people are getting in posthumously when they're actually there, alive, and able to experience that and enjoy it while they're alive. The Bengals were so slow to embrace this idea of having the Ring of Honor, and a lot of players had missed out on that opportunity. And since they're doing this, only putting two people in at once, you push it back every single year, and those older players get older every single year. So, you know, I don't think that's going to change. That's a Mike Brown thing where he wants to make it special, but you're probably not helping the situation by allowing some of these veteran players who are more than worthy to get into the Ring of Honor for the Bengals by pushing it back. So yeah, but that would be my guess. Probably Corey Dillon or Lamar Parrish, or Corey Dillon and Bob Trumpy. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, Monday Night Football against the Commanders. Who are your two picks? Who do you think should go into the Ring of Honor this next season? That's probably going to be the whiteout game for Monday Night Football. The Bengals are 2-0 in these Ring of Honor games. I think beating Jacksonville in one. I can't remember, and the Dolphins in the other Ring of Honor game. So hopefully they can keep that streak going on Monday Night Football against the Commanders. All right, let's get the third down. All right, third down, the offseason question. Joe Burrow has been a full participant in these offseason programs. He's been out there throwing. We did an emergency pod that first day that he walked out to practice. He comes out there. He's got that freaking elbow on arm sleeve on, so you're a little bit concerned. But, if you trust the videos that you're seeing and you trust the things that the players are saying, he's looks fine. Balls look okay. I would say they have a little bit of wobble at the end, but, he's getting into practicing and throwing more and more balls. And it came out this week that offensive coordinator Dan Pitcher said that he's not on a pitch count. And we lived this pitch count situation with Carson Palmer when he tore his ligaments in his elbow, and where they had limited him in practice from throwing too many balls. But it says, or they're saying, that Joe Burrow is not on a pitch count, which is kind of interesting. Based on the injury that he's had, based on the lack of history on how to rehab this particular injury, from the quarterback position. So you would have to think that, maybe they, ease him into it a little bit more, but it looks like they're not. And he's out there and he's throwing, full speed, full velocity, and going through drills as necessary, and then getting treatment afterwards. So that's the question, the third down question. Should Joe Burrow be on a pitch count? As we're getting into this offseason program, he is a competitor. He wants to compete. One of the reasons that we wound up getting the strained calf last year is that he worked through it. He felt it was a strain, and he didn't stop and you know what, let me listen to my body, take this drill off, take the morning off, come back in the afternoon, get treatment. No, he tried to push through it, and he winds up, straining that calf and putting last season, mostly in jeopardy at that particular point. And so with this wrist injury, he is still in the rehab portion of this. He's still going out and throwing it, but he's still in rehabbing this wrist. And since this is such an unknown injury, I'm probably leaning in him to having a version of a pitch count. He doesn't need to take every single rep at that particular point. Take some time off, take some reps off, do something to not push yourself to the point where, again, this is a catastrophic type of injury, to be honest with you. If it occurs again, this is like a career ending situation. So I would rather him slow his way into it, go through these drills, take some time off, and then, go into that dark period and continue to throw and get treatment throughout that time. And have him fully ready as we can once we get to training camp. But even then, still, you probably have to hold him back from himself, because he's going to want to compete in every single drill all the time. And he kind of admitted that in his press conference, that he'll need to pull back a little bit to listen to his body more and to take the breaks and time. And that's something that just comes with age. As he's getting older into his fifth season now at the Bengals, this is something that he probably needs to do for his long-term career, but in the short term to make sure that he's fully healthy at the start of training camp to get through this particular 17-game season. Let's get to fourth down, y'all. Fourth down, off-season question for the Cincinnati Bengals. Both T. Higgins and Jamar Chase have not attended the off-season program. T. Higgins is not under contract with the Bengals. Everybody's like, oh, he has the franchise tag. Yeah, but he has to actually sign it, and he hasn't signed it yet. I fully expect him to sign it. I don't think that's going to be an issue at all. He'll probably sign it right before, training camp begins or right after it, is into a couple of weeks. He's not going to risk going over there. Although there is a risk here too, because if he's in off-season training and he hurts himself, God forbid, then the Bengals could take that away from him and him not get a chance to sign it, and he gets no money. So, it's 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. So he has to be very smart with that and with his team and his agent. But Jamar Chase hasn't attended the offseason program either, and it's probably a little bit for the same reason. Whereas he has already been given the fifth-year option and is 2 years under contract control left with the Bengals, he's still looking to get his long-term deal, and everything has been held up because Justin Jefferson hasn't signed his deal. Everybody's waiting for that, shoe to drop of Justin Jefferson to get his money because it feels like it's going to reset the wide receiver market. But here comes the problem. It's a two-question thing. Is Jamar not being there? Is that a problem? Is it a big deal, no deal, or little deal, or no deal? And I think it's probably a little bit of a deal or a small deal, only because everybody's there for the team. Everybody's there right now. We know Trey Hendrickson wasn't happy about his contract, even though he signed it. And I think it's a small deal, but I don't think it's like a real thing that's actually hurting the team, because I think everybody understands and knows that, and Jamar said it, that they were waiting for Justin Jefferson to sign that deal. The problem becomes is Justin Jefferson very much feels like he doesn't want to sign a deal with the Vikings, probably because the uncertainty at the quarterback position. So if he doesn't want to sign or doesn't sign, it pushes all these other dudes that are looking for deals down, because nobody wants to really go in first before Justin Jefferson. So whether it be CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Ayuk, Jamar Chase, nobody really wants to go and be first. So that's a little bit of a deal for me. But, I mean, we're South Florida people here. We see him training down here. Jamar Chase is training down here. If you go to his Instagram, and T. Higgins is too, for that matter, you see them training. It's not like they're sitting on their, butts and, eating potato chips and eating ice cream or whatever. It's not that. It's just that they're not with the team. So it'll be interesting to see if Jamar shows up on Tuesday. Again, it is not a mandatory minicamp. I think that's the second week of phase 3. And so I'm sure he'll show up at that time. But up until then, it's not. The second part of that question is, why are these wide receiver deals stalled? There have been some number 2 wide receivers that got deals in the offseason in that, close to $25 million per average range. But none of the big, type A number 1 wide receivers have gotten deals. And you start to wonder, it's like, wait a minute, is there a little bit of a collusion here going on with the league not wanting to set a precedent about getting wide receivers over $30 million a year? We've seen this happen with other positions, linebacker, and most importantly on offense with running backs. It's like what there becomes a breaking point where the league is like, yeah, we're not doing that. That's way too much money for playing for one player. And to be honest with you, maybe $30 million a year for a wide receiver is the cap, because one, that becomes your second highest paid player primarily, on your team. And then 2, there's been so many wide receivers that are coming into the league now, much like running backs, that can come in and play well as rookies on rookie deals. So unless you have a Justin Jefferson or a Jamar Chase or CeeDee Lamb or whatever, you're not paying number 1 money to a bunch of number 2s. And since that number 1 money keeps going up, the number 2 money keeps going up. So I think there might be a little bit of a cap trying to sit on number 1 wide receivers, which is why those deals have not even stalled out. They just flat out haven't happened. And again, I know Justin Jefferson is holding this up for probably a variety of reasons, and most of them probably aren't money. He probably wants to see what's going to happen with the Vikings before he commits long-term to them, because their quarterback situation is an absolute freaking shit show at this point, with Sam Darnold and that kid from Michigan as your two top quarterbacks. That those would not endear me to a lot of confidence if I wanted to sign a long-term deal there, no matter how much money it is. And plus, let's be honest, you have to live in Minnesota. Who the hell wants to do that? So we'll see. But yeah, I think the mega deals for the wide receivers might start to shrink up a little bit. That's a little bit troublesome for T. Higgins to kind of see what happens here as he goes into this year on the franchise tag, and then next year, and you have to see what's going to happen with some of these wide receivers, especially again clear number two wide receivers. All right, so that's four downs, y'all, and that's it for the show. Real quick and easy as we start to get into this offseason program. Still two draft picks still haven't been signed by the Bengals. The first two picks, I expect that to happen this week while they're in OTAs. It's just the perfect time for it to happen. Again, as you start to get into these mandatory phases, if they don't have a contract, they can't practice. So it'll be coming up here very, very soon. All right. So I'm the producer of the podcast. Leave your comments in the YouTube about those four questions or what you think the answers should be. And we'll see you next week. Peace, everybody.